Hello friends, welcome to a new video. Today we will be setting up my bullet journal for the month of November, or more accurately, we're going to be viewing the process of me setting it up because the month is already halfway through. It's actually the 14th when I got to record this voiceover. But anyway, let's talk about the theme. For November, I always go towards cozy. I want my bullet journal to give me all the cozy feels, mostly because November is when I really get into the winter spirit and the weather is starting to, cool, and I want to feel cozy, okay? And when I think of cozy, I think of warm tones, beiges, browns, warm grays, and I just decided on this theme because it's been on my bucket list for long enough, particularly since Plant-Based Bride did this theme 3 or 4 years ago, which is daisies on craft paper or with craft paper elements, and I really love this theme. I don't think I did it justice like all the way through, but at least the cover page is gorgeous. Speaking of which, I'm already painting it, so let's talk about it. So for the craft paper, I used a craft paper gift bag because it's the only thing that I could find that is craft paper, and it's particularly thick, which added some heaviness to my notebook and some bulk, but that is fine. And I ended up roughly cutting it into like a rectangle, and then I actually used the ruler to cut it rather than an X-Acto knife or scissors, so the edges are very organic and ripped almost, but are not actually torn, if that makes sense. And I sketched my inspo image onto the craft paper. I will put it on the screen. It is absolutely beautiful, and I just could envision in my head how it's gonna look in my notebook and where I'm gonna put the title and everything, so I went with it. I'm using gouache paints from Rocco, and I actually found them on Trendyol, which ships internationally, so I'll be sure to link them below because they are my favorite gouache paints. I already painted a few flowers at this point, but let's talk about the process. I'm using straight titanium white for this and a round brush, wetting the paint quite a bit so it's movable, not so thick. And then I'm coloring the flower by alternating the petals, and also going over them a few times. And the reason for that is I didn't want to paint 2 petals beside each other and have the white paint like bleed into the petals and merge. I wanted each petal to look separate, if that makes sense. And also I always think of it as layers, so when I painted alternatively, no 2 petals beside each other were technically on the same layer, if that makes any sense at all. And the reason why I went over the petals a few times to build up the pigment but didn't do so for all the petals is actually quite strategic and smart of me. So in the original image, some petals are in the background, we could say. They are a little dull, the light isn't hitting them directly, but I didn't want to add gray to this. I really didn't want to add another color that I'm gonna have to paint individual petals with. So instead what I did, I noticed that the first layer I did with the with the white on top of the tan paper wasn't very opaque, and it gave the exact effect as if I had used a gray color for those petals, making some petals more opaque than the others, and that gave the dimension, and it looks really good. I especially love how almost 3D-ish these flowers are. They are not really flat, and they are all positioned differently. That is especially why I love this illustration. For the center of the flowers, I started with a mix of yellow ochre and lemon yellow because I didn't want it to be so dark. I wanted to add a yellowish tint to it, I guess. So I did that for all of the petals, and my technique is always stippling. I just love stippling, I guess. And then I added some, burnt umber to the yellow ochre lemon yellow mixture, and that was used for the shadows. And then I added white to the original mixture of yellow ochre and lemon yellow, and that was used for the highlights. And I'm gonna go back to this and add a little bit of gold shimmer paint to the highlighted areas to give it some life when the light hits it. It's very beautiful. I ended up forgetting a flower here, so I sketched it and painted and everything, and then went back with the yellow and the white just to touch up some areas. Now for the leaves and stems, I ended up mixing sap green with some burnt umber as well to give it a deeper earthy tone, if that makes sense, and not an artificial green color. And then I went with a fine brush and painted over all of the stems and leaves that I had already sketched, making some more rounder and more thicker than others. But overall, it was a straightforward process because I had everything sketched out, and I really made sure that I have the stems and the leaves sketched out, because otherwise they're not gonna look sensical, if that makes sense. It's just not gonna make sense where the stems are gonna be if I do them freehand, which I did in other illustrations, and it didn't really look all that good. But then I added black and grass green, I think, and multiple greens. I mixed multiple greens with burnt umber and lamp black to get a very dark color, but I didn't want it to be black. I wanted it to tinge towards green, and I got that shade, and with some large brushes and detailed brushes I went around all of the stems, leaves and individual petals to color the background. You are wondering, why didn't I paint the background first and then all of the flowers? First of all, because it would have been impossible to see my sketch over such dark color. Second of all, painting white on top of a dark color in gouache is really messy, because with a wet brush you pick up the paint underneath it, so it's gonna be tinged green, and I didn't want to have that hue anywhere on the petals. I wanted them crisp white. So I decided to go ahead with this technique, which took a lot of time. It's definitely the thing that took the longest in this setup. And then if you noticed, when I'm coloring the background, I'm not having it in a crisp line. I didn't block the frame or whatever with washi tape or anything. Instead, I blended it to give almost the same effect as the torn, or not torn, not ribbed, the torn paper, I guess, the rough edge, because I cut it with a ruler. So it all matches, because I didn't really care about crisp lines in this theme. Not too much, at least. So to talk about why this theme took so long to get out, first, I work a full-time job. It's almost 11 to 12 hours out of the day, so I come back, I'm drained. Sometimes I'm not in the mood to film or do anything, and sometimes I have places to be, or chores, or part-time job or whatever, so I'm not always free to film and do as I please with my time, I guess. But I've been really good with this, because every time I filmed a page, like the cover page, I would export it to my iPad, and then on my way to home from work on the bus, which is like 45 minutes, I edit that segment. And so I was up to date. By the time I finished setting this up, I was up to date with editing everything. It just needed some voiceovers and background music and all of the edits and such. So that was nice. The other reason is I didn't start this theme until very late, because I couldn't find craft paper anywhere, not in stores. They were overpriced online, and I didn't have any, but except, I guess, the craft gift bag that I had. But back to the painting, as you can see, I went over the leaves with a lighter green to give them some highlight, and so they pop against the dark background. And then I went back with yellow and white to touch up some leaves, and also blend in the areas where the leaves go off frame, I guess. So the leaves that are incomplete and are right up against the craft paper, I guess, if that makes sense, and give them that effect of the red whatever thing I was doing. But that's basically it for my cover page. All that is left is to add the header. I decided to go with some simple cursive. I used a white paint pen first to illustrate or to letter the November title in the place where I had imagined it to be, but I didn't really like that much, and I also don't like that the R is just off the painting, but that is fine. I ended up going over everything with gold, so added some gold to the highlighted areas of the center of the flowers, and then also over the November header with gold, but unfortunately my phone didn't capture that. So we are gonna move on to the calendar spread. For the calendar spread, I decided to do the entire calendar using craft paper, so I cut 31, I think, even squares. They're not so even because I used scissors. Apparently I just didn't care about crisp lines. And then I used liquid glue to glue them in the correct placement, doing some very satisfactory editing so it doesn't take 10 years to complete this spread. Once that was done, I decided where I'm gonna put in the headers and marked the spaces with a pencil so I don't get the placement wrong. And then with a fine brush pen, a hard nib, similar to the Fudenosuke, I guess, I went in and added the headers. And then I went ahead and added the numbers to the calendar as well. This was very simple and I was gonna leave it at that because I didn't know what illustration to put here and fit it to the space, but then I found the perfect one and we are already starting on that. As you can see, I illustrated it directly onto the paper's notebook and not on craft paper because it's gonna be an overload of craft paper if I had done that, because the calendar is already made entirely of the craft paper. So I painted it directly into the notebook. You can't really see the white very well because it's white on white paper. You can see it because it's tinged a little bit yellow in reaction to the brightness around it. But I did that, then did the leaves and the stems, and then also the center of the flowers. This was relatively a quick illustration to create, and it would have been a lot faster as well if I am not such a perfectionist, but it's fine. I enjoy painting, so I don't mind it taking a little bit longer. But it's basically 3 flowers, so it went by quite easy and fast. However, I didn't really like how it looked just like that, and I wanted to add the background, so I ended up coloring around it through like the entire length of the page to cover that area with the dark, almost black green color. And that made it look very nice. I actually really like how it turned out, but it was a little more difficult because I used such a dark color of the green, so sometimes I couldn't tell where the leaves are and where the background is, but it ended up looking quite great. Now for the weekly log, as you can see, I already have the illustration down. It's a field of daisies, but I really don't like how it turned out because I freehanded everything, and that usually doesn't turn out good. And as you can see, I already have 2 weeks prepped in advance because, well, I was going to do the same thing, so it saved me time and also meant that I had my weeks ready and I can populate them while I worked on setting this up and filming it. So in the flip through, you're gonna see the first 2 weeks are already filled, and that is great because I can show a blank page without having to actually save it because it's a Dutch door. I really like this. It saves me a lot of time. So I decided on a single week per spread, if that makes sense, and then on mismatched and varied sizes of boxes, some vertical, some horizontal, some in the original dot grid white paper and some in the brown craft paper, placed alternatively, so no two weeklies are exactly the same, if that makes sense, and then went in with my brush pen and lettered the days of the week from Sunday to weekend. I thought about adding second line highlights to the dot grid rectangles, and I did that for the first week, but I actually really didn't like how it turned out, so I didn't do it for any of the other weeks, and that is fine. This is what happens when I don't plan my weeklies or my themes to a T beforehand, but I have been slowly accepting that more and more because I simply don't have time to be as prissy and as exact with everything regarding my Bouger's theme as I've been in the past, I guess. And also, as you will notice, that when I cut these Dutch doors, I also rip them. They are not cut with an X-Acto knife to get that organic aspect and visual interest, I guess. So while I had planned my weeklies, I had absolutely not planned my monthly dashboard situation. And actually, I'm a little mad at myself for putting it all the way in the back rather than it being the first spread in this Dutch door situation, but that is fine. I came up with this design on the spot as I'm filming because I hadn't used much of the ribbed edge in this. I decided to add it in the headers, also because I didn't have enough craft paper to do alternate rectangles for the 4 sections, so I just did the headers roughly in the same size, glued them down, and then with my brush pen ended up lettering my 4 sections, which is finance, work, and freelance joined into one, then health, and then lifestyle, or maybe the opposite, I cannot remember. But it is very simple. I then went with a brown fine liner, which I've been using all throughout this theme. I don't think I mentioned it. I'm using the sepia fine liner from Unipen, and I used that to outline the boxes in the previous weeklies and also here in this layout, I guess. And it's very, very simple. The only thing is, this is the one time where I don't have enough space for everything I want to write down. I went off my track record for the past few months and I said, well, I don't need too much space. Apparently I do. Moving on to the final spread in this theme, which took the longest to set up because I had no idea what to do with it, but I decided to do something that I've done before, which is one page is for the illustration, the other page is for my monthly review. And since I haven't been really populating my month in media or my monthly reads or whatever, I haven't been really populating that spread, I thought I would remove it. Of course, when I did remove it is when I went back to watch movies and read good books that I would like to record, but that is fine. I will just do a page for it afterwards. It's not that big of a deal. So I chose this illustration, which I'm gonna put on the screen. It's beautiful, and I had no faith in myself to actually make it look beautiful, and that lack of faith was placed correctly, because this did not turn out as well as I had hoped in my brain. But I attempted it, and I'm gonna give that to myself, because I don't always accept the fact that my paintings don't look absolutely gorgeous, I guess. I think it's the leaves. That is my issue with daisies and fields of flowers, is the leaves don't make sense where they go. People are like, oh, just flick the brush wherever. I'm like, no, they have to make sense, and here they don't. But it's the same exact process. Started with the white, then went with the yellow, forgot to add shadows and highlights, but that's fine. Then went with the leaves. This took forever to film and then to edit. And then after that, I started adding the background. And actually, you have seen me color the background of 2 illustrations already, so I just did it off camera, and also because I wanted to be very, very close to this painting while I was painting it and coloring the background for it and such. And for some reason I ended up having it low rather than center on the page, but that is fine. Here is me coming back to this painting a few days later, because I didn't have time to finish it when I filmed it originally. So I'm just going over the leaves and touching them up, because there's some white areas around them that I couldn't really get to with the background, and just, touch them up. Except I didn't mix new colors, I just used the dried paint on my palette, which it doesn't look good. I just don't like it. I tried adding highlights, didn't work. Overall, I just really don't like this illustration. It did not turn out as good as my other illustrations. I mean, even the one that I did on the weeklies looks better than this, but it's fine. The idea was I would paint the illustration directly on the notebook paper, because I don't have enough craft paper to cover this, and then I will add corners with the craft paper. The corners were already made with how the paperback was folded and such from the bottom, so I just cut the triangles and ripped the longest side, I guess, that is gonna cover the painting, and glued them on alternative corners. For the actual month in review setup, I had no idea what I was gonna do, so I ended up ripping this section that's gonna go across the entire side of the page, and wrote month or November in review on it, sort of to mimic the headers that I did for my dashboard situation, and then wrote all of my headers in alternative placements, I guess, on the page with the brush pen, just using my regular calligraphy. We have my regular 6 sections, which is highlights, challenges, memories, accomplishments, finance, and favorite, and this time I switched the placement for finance and favorite. I like to pre-assign the amount of space I have for each section, sort of to limit the negativity bias. So I leave less space for my challenges and more space for my highlights and accomplishments, so that I have less of a negativity bias when it comes to my life, and so I won't add too many things, or only the actual challenges, if that makes sense, and not every minimal let down, if that makes sense. And then I switched the finances and favorites, because I wanted more space for the favorite section, but I didn't want to take away from the memories section. Then outlined everything with the brown fine liner, and that is literally it for my November setup. It is absolutely beautiful. I love how it turned out. I love the cover page. I love the calendar spread. I like the weeklies, and I don't despise the monthly review. I like how the monthly review structure is, but I don't like the illustration beside it. And I should add a quote above the illustration to fill that awkward empty space. But thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you tune in for my next setup as well. And I will see you next time.